Welcome. This video is over percent, decimal, fraction, and percent equivalence. So here's our number routine. It says write at least 3 rational numbers you know about this picture. What can you say about it? Well, I see some parts are shaded, and I can see some parts are unshaded. Would you like to talk about the shaded or the unshaded? I guess I'll talk about the shaded part. I see there are 100 squares here, so each one is a hundredths. 2, 3, 4. There's 6 hundredths of it is shaded. So I could write that as 6%, 600, or 600. Or I could say 3/50th of this picture is shaded. If you want to talk about unshaded, you could say 94 hundredths of this picture is unshaded, or 94%. Again, what percent is anything per 100. So it's 94 per 100. Also, I could say 47/50th of this picture is unshaded. So here is a video, a short vignette. Let me play it.
Apenas 3% de vocês serão um seleto grupo de heróis a caminho do Mar Alto, onde o casal fundador criou o mais perfeito dos mundos, onde ninguém é injustiçado. Todos têm a mesma chance, e depois o lugar que merece. O Mar Alto ou o continente, ou como vocês costumam falar, o lado de lá ou o lado de cá. Esse processo garante que só os melhores desfrutem do Mar Alto.
So this movie is called 3%. It's a Brazilian reality, not reality, a fantasy, a sci-fi, where only 3% of the population are allowed to go offshore into the promised land, where there is no illness, everybody has equality, everybody's rich, and so on like that. So only 3% goes to the perfect world of offshore. How do you write this rational number as a percent, fraction, and decimal? Let's use base 10 to show it. 1%, 2%, 3%. So 3%, or 3 per 100, or 3 hundredths. Is there another way I can represent this? Not really, because I cannot simplify this fraction. So can you show me 70% with the base 10 blocks? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. So 70%, 70 hundredths, or give me even 7/10ths, and a fraction would be 70 hundredths. Could I simplify this? Yes, you can, to 35/50. Can I simplify again? Divide by 5, 7/10ths. You know what? I realized I probably should have divided both of these 70 and 100 by 10 to get the 7/10ths right away. But all of these are equivalent. Show me 132%. 100, 10, 20, 30, 31, 32. So this represents 132%. Let's look at this closely. I see 1 whole square, and I see 32 hundredths. A percent means 132 per 100. Could I simplify this? Could I also say can 100 go into 132 one time? 32 hundredths. That's where we get this 1 and 32 hundredths. Could I simplify this again? I could get 1 and 16/50. I could even get 1 and 8/25. All of these are equivalent. 1 and 8/25 is the same as saying 1 and 16/50, which is the same as saying 1 and 3200, which is the same thing as saying it's 132 per 100, or 132%, and 1 and 32 hundredths. Can you show me 150%? 100, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So our percent is 150%. So a percent, again, is anything per 100. How many hundreds go in 150? One time. 1 and 50 hundredths. Let's look at this. Do I see this? 1 whole, 50 hundredths. Is this half of a whole? Yes, it is. So 1.5. What's decimal? 1.50 or 1.5. So James Harden averages 44% shooting from the field goal. In basketball, the term field goal refers to a basket scored on any shot or tap other than a free throw worth 2 or 3 more points depending on the distance of the attempt from the basket. My shooting percent is 99%. I am human after all. I mean, I can't say 100%. So, what happens if I'm on an off day? Can you find my shooting percent for 3/8, 4/5, 9/25? So, what if I shoot 3 out of 8? Well, I know it's going to be less than half. So, I know I will shoot less than 50%. Can 8 go into 100? Well, actually, it can now. It can go in times 12.5 times 12.5, which is 37.5 hundredths. And so what percent is this? Again, a percent is anything per 100. So my shooting percent would be 37.5%. Because the scale factor is times 12.5. How did I get that? How many 8s go into 100? It goes in 1 time. 2, bring that 0. 8 goes in 22 times. And x another 0. 8 goes in 45 times. So it is 12.5 is scale factor. What is my shooting percent if I shoot 4 out of 5 field goals? Can 5 go to 100? Scale factor is times 20. So my shooting is 80 hundredths, which is the same as saying 80%. For this one, what will my shooting percent be? Scale factor is times 4, so 37 hundredths percent is anything per 100, so 36%. Again, these are off days. I would mostly be this one. All right, so what you're going to be doing today is you are actually going to be shooting some shots. You're going to be getting some trash and crumpled paper, and then you're going to shoot out of 5, out of 20, out of 8, and so on. And we're going to calculate it. So after that, we're going to do an activity, shading activity. Mr. Joe baked his famous brownies. Of the 100 brownies, he plans to give 7/20 of the brownies to his students. Shade the grid below to represent the portion of brownies that he plans to give away. So I need to break this brownie tray into 20 equivalent parts. And I am handing 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 20 and giving it to my students. So how many hundredths are shaded? 35 hundredths, which is 35% or 35 hundredths. Could I have gotten that answer without shading this? What is the scale factor from 20 to 100% times 5? 35%. Mr. Rao tried to break brownies. Of the 100 brownies, he plans to give away 36 hundredths of the burnt brownies to a student. He will call it dark chocolate. Kids won't know the difference. Dark chocolate is bitter. Shade a grid below to represent the portion of the burnt brownies that he plans to give away. So using my highlighter, I will shade in tenths, 20 hundredths, 30 hundredths, 35, 36 hundredths. So he plans to give away 36 hundredths or 36% of his brownies away. So to convert a decimal into a percent, you write the decimal as a fraction. You write it in fraction form. So this is 65 hundredths, 5 hundredths, 2 tenths, which can be built by a scale factor of 10 to 20 hundredths. Now you write the fraction as a percent. So you stick a percent sign afterwards, and that's how you do it. So in 2014, the number of people 65 years and older in Michigan was 13 hundredths of the Total population. Complete the table. Well, how would you say this with place value? 1300. A percent is anything per 100, so it must be 13%. In a recent season, Jeremy Lin of the Brooklyn Nets, he used to be part of Houston Rockets, if you didn't know that. And I believe he was part of New York Knicks. Oh, it's okay. We will pull it up again. I'm not sure why I did that. Can you find where's Jeremy Lin? Jeremy Lin. Okay. Had a free throw average of 0.7 rounded to the nearest tenths. So his decimal is 7/10. But again, we're finding the percent. So percent is anything per 100. So what is the scale factor here? Times 10. So 70 hundredths or 70%, which is not bad. A player's battling average was 75 thousandths rounded to the nearest thousand. Complete the table. So this is in 75 thousandths. What is a percent again? A percent again is anything per 100. So how am I going to get from 1,000 to 100? I'm going to divide by 10. Or you can multiply it by a scale factor of 1/10. I'm going to find a tenth of that. So what is 75 divided by 10? It goes in 7 groups. 5 is a remainder. Annex the decimal 0. So it's 7.5 hundredths. And so a percent is anything per 100. So the percent is 70.5 or 7.5%. And last one, China accounts for 2,100 of the world's population. What percent of the world's population does not live in China? Well, let's figure out what percent lives in China, and then we can work backward from that. So 2,100 live in China. That's 21%. Well, we know there's 100%. 100 minus 21, 79% does not live in China, or 79 hundredths, or 79 hundredths. So to convert a percent into a decimal, you write the percent as per 100. Now write the fraction as a decimal. So, for example, you write percent means per 100, so 6 per 100. Then how do you say 600th in decimal form? Like this way. So according to the U.S. Census, 76% of American workers commute to work by driving alone. I am one of those, guilty of it. I know people who live in more larger metropolitan city that has a more dense use public transportation as subways and stuff. So 76%. That 76% means anything per 100. So how do you say 7,600 in decimal form? Such as this. Larry solved 124%. Oh, actually, you should say sold 124% of his sales goal. Complete the table. So it's 124 per 100. Can 100 go into 124? One time, 1 and 24 hundredths. And our decimal is 1 and 24 hundredths. And so that is percent equivalency.